The invitation arrived on a quiet Tuesday evening, tucked between bills and grocery flyers in the narrow metal mailbox outside the small brick apartment building. Daniel had almost ignored it. His days had become a routine of exhaustion and survival, and most envelopes meant one more responsibility he wasn't sure he could handle. But something about the elegant cream-colored paper caught his attention. When he opened it and read the words, his chest tightened. It was a wedding invitation, from his younger sister. For a long moment, Daniel just stood there in the dim hallway, staring at the card. The hallway light flickered softly above him, humming like it always did. The building smelled faintly of detergent and old carpet. Life had been quiet here, predictable in the way that comes after losing everything that once made life feel bright. Daniel was a single dad. And he had been one for 3 long years. His wife, Maria, had been the kind of person who made rooms warmer just by walking into them. Her laugh could pull people out of the darkest moods. She believed deeply in kindness, in small miracles, in the power of people showing up for each other. Then one winter morning, a sudden illness took her away. Just like that. One moment she was packing their son's lunch, the next moment the world collapsed. Since then, Daniel's life had become a quiet storm of responsibilities. He woke before dawn, worked long hours repairing HVAC systems across the city, rushed home to pick up his 6-year-old son Liam from after-school care, cooked simple dinners, helped with homework, washed laundry late into the night, and tried to be both mother and father in a house that often felt too silent. Some nights he sat alone after Liam fell asleep and stared at the empty chair across the kitchen table. 3 years had passed. But grief had a way of staying. And loneliness had become his shadow. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the unexpected ways life can change in a single moment, take a second to like this video, comment where you're watching from, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to the channel, The Kindness Chronicles. Stories like this remind us that even the most ordinary days can hold extraordinary moments. Daniel wasn't sure he would attend the wedding. The thought of sitting alone among couples made his chest heavy. Weddings were supposed to be joyful, but for him they carried echoes of the life he once had. Still, it was his sister. And family mattered. So on the day of the wedding, Daniel stood in front of the small mirror in his bedroom, adjusting a suit he hadn't worn in years. The fabric felt unfamiliar, like clothing from a past life. Liam sat on the bed swinging his legs, watching his dad carefully. The boy had Maria's eyes. Bright. Curious. And sometimes, painfully observant. Daniel knelt in front of him and gently fixed the collar of Liam's tiny button-down shirt. He told Liam he would stay with Mrs. Patterson, the elderly woman downstairs who often helped watch him when Daniel worked late. Liam nodded with the quiet understanding children sometimes carry when life forces them to grow up faster than they should. Before leaving, Daniel hugged his son tightly. For a moment, he wished Maria could see them. Then he stepped out into the evening air. The wedding was held in a large garden venue across town, glowing with warm lights and soft music drifting through the night. Lanterns hung from tree branches like tiny stars. Guests laughed and clinked glasses while waiters moved gracefully through the crowd carrying trays of sparkling drinks. It was beautiful. And painfully romantic. Daniel stayed near the edges of the celebration, offering polite smiles, congratulating his sister, and trying to ignore the quiet ache in his chest. Everywhere he looked, couples danced, held hands, leaned close to whisper to each other. The world seemed full of love. But Daniel felt like a spectator. As the night deepened, music swelled and people gathered near the dance floor. Daniel stood near the back of the garden, watching his sister twirl happily with her new husband beneath strings of glowing lights. He was about to slip away quietly when something unexpected happened. A voice suddenly cut through the music. Loud. Clear. And completely out of place. "Look at me." The shout echoed across the garden. Conversation stopped. Music faltered. Heads turned. Daniel blinked in confusion and followed the sound toward the far edge of the venue near the entrance gate. Standing there, slightly out of breath and waving both arms dramatically, was someone he recognized immediately. It was his neighbor. Clara. Clara lived in the apartment next door to Daniel and Liam. She had moved into the building about a year earlier with her young daughter, Emma. They often crossed paths in the hallway or outside near the mailboxes. She was friendly, warm, and always seemed to be juggling life with a determined kind of optimism. But seeing her here, at his sister's wedding, made absolutely no sense. Guests murmured in confusion. Clara stood there smiling nervously as everyone stared. Daniel felt his face grow warm. He quickly walked toward her, unsure whether to apologize for the disruption or simply guide her quietly away before things became more awkward. But before he could reach her, something even stranger happened. Clara stepped forward confidently and raised her voice again. She began speaking to the entire crowd. Not loudly in a rude way, but with the kind of heartfelt determination that immediately silenced every whisper around her. She told everyone she knew she wasn't on the guest list. She admitted she had never even met the bride or groom. But she said she had come for a reason. Her eyes scanned the crowd until they landed on Daniel. And suddenly everyone was looking at him. Daniel froze. Clara continued speaking, explaining that sometimes people walk through life carrying quiet battles that no one else sees. She spoke about single parents, about grief, about the silent strength it takes to wake up every day and keep moving forward for someone else. Her voice trembled slightly. Then she said something that made Daniel's heart stop. She said she lived next door to one of the strongest people she had ever known. A man who worked endlessly to raise his son alone. A man who fixed broken things for everyone in the building but rarely let anyone help him. A man who had forgotten that he deserved happiness too. The garden had gone completely silent. Even the wind seemed to pause. Daniel felt every eye on him. Clara walked closer. Slowly. Carefully. Then she revealed the reason she had come. Weeks earlier, Liam had knocked on her door. The little boy had been holding a drawing. In the drawing were 3 stick figures holding hands. Liam had explained that it was supposed to be their family. But he had quietly asked Clara something that broke her heart. He had asked if dads ever stopped being lonely. That question had stayed with her. And when she learned from Liam that Daniel was attending a wedding alone that night, she decided she couldn't let him face that reminder of love and family by himself. So she came. Not to embarrass him. Not to create a scene. But to remind him that sometimes people see our struggles even when we try to hide them. Clara's voice softened as she looked at Daniel. She said kindness isn't always quiet. Sometimes it shows up loudly. Sometimes it interrupts the music. Sometimes it stands in front of a crowd and says something no one else had the courage to say. Then she did something that shocked everyone. She asked Daniel to dance. For a moment, Daniel didn't move. The garden lights shimmered above them. Guests held their breath. His heart pounded as emotions he had buried for years rose to the surface. Grief. Loneliness. Hope. And something else. The possibility that life might not be finished surprising him yet. Slowly, he stepped forward. The crowd parted gently. Music began again, soft and tentative at first. Daniel took Clara's hand. And beneath the glowing lanterns of a wedding meant for someone else, a single father who had believed his story had already been written began to realize that maybe, just maybe, a new chapter was starting. The moment was quiet. But powerful. And many guests watching wiped away tears. Because sometimes the most beautiful stories are not planned. They happen when someone simply chooses to care. As the night continued, laughter returned, music grew louder, and something inside Daniel felt lighter than it had in years. For the first time since Maria's passing, he didn't feel invisible in a room full of love. He felt seen. And that changed everything. Weeks later, life in the apartment building slowly shifted. Daniel and Clara became close friends. Their children played together in the courtyard. Dinners were occasionally shared. And laughter began to echo through Daniel's home again. Healing didn't happen overnight. But kindness had opened a door. And sometimes that is all it takes. A single brave moment. A single voice shouting across a crowded garden. Look at me. If this story touched your heart, take a moment right now to like the video, share it with someone who believes in the power of kindness, and subscribe to The Kindness Chronicles.